Welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Listen in as we discuss all things business, growth, and marketing with business owners, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, founder of Roundhouse, the creative agency, Saul Edmonds.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Justin Rule around the topic entrepreneurship and the importance of your website. Justin, what's up?
Hey, great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. So, for people who don't know you, and well, actually, they may not know me either. So, tell everyone a little about who you are, a bit of history, your business, and anything else you want to share.
Well, my name's Justin. We covered that part. So, first things first.
It's a good start.
Yeah, that's right.
Good start. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know what people in Australia call the people from the States, but I'm from the States. Which
we call you people.
Okay, there you go. I learned that my parents are Canadian, so it was kind of like, are you from the States? Or are you from up north? So I don't know what people are called wherever they live, but no, I'm just an average guy that loves helping people, but with a atypical career story. And no, I live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I've got 5 chickens. And last I checked, 30-some hens and roosters running around if the fox hasn't gotten it yet. And yeah, the cats and the dogs, and we did a little farmette here that we're trying to experiment as, what do they call them, homesteaders or backyard farmers?
Yeah, and then on the flip side, you're at the forefront of technology, and then you go out and you feed the chickens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's exercising both sides of my brain, or at least my feet and then my hands. I'm not sure, but yeah, we're having fun, and we homeschool all our kids, so that's a whole nother credit to my wife, but it's just part of the adventure. It's fun.
That's what we do too, actually. That's funny you should say that, because we
fantastic.
Because we do homeschooling with our little boy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
we kind of, maybe the whole world's into homeschooling now, given our current issues at hand, right? But,
yeah, it's a great time for the homeschooling industry. That's for sure. Yeah, I think they never knew what hit them.
That's right. We should be talking about how to help homeschool pop-up moms across the world or something.
Yeah, and many of them, I'm sure, are probably entrepreneurs as well anyway, so
absolutely.
It's completely relevant to the topic that we're talking about.
It's true. No, it's fun. I have to, Saul, if you let me, I got to tell, I didn't prep you for this, so you might have to just cut it out of the editing, but I don't edit anything, Justin. Oh, okay. Well, here we go. Yeah. And my wife's going to kill me when she hears this back and says, "You told him that story." But so my wife met me while I was trying to recruit students at college to be a part of my club. And my club was the Ocean Science Club. But the catch was I was sporting my best Australian accent. And she fell in love with the man she thought was an Aussie until she showed up in my first meeting. And I told everybody in my best attempt of an accent, which I'm not even going to try. I'll embarrass myself.
No. I'm sorry, Justin. You've gone too far. You have to do it.
You got to give it a whirl.
You've gone too far. There's no way. I'm going to let you off this podcast.
It was something like, "Welcome to the Ocean Science Club. I'm so glad you're here, but I got a confession to make. I'm not really from Australia. I'm actually from Ohio." And everyone stood up. Well, a lot of people got offended and left, I guess.
Oh, man, that's funny.
So the crazy full circle is, on our honeymoon, I was coming down the elevator that they have in the Eiffel Tower. We just stopped by Paris for a few days. And I was, I guess, showing off my Australian accent. I'm not sure why. Coming down the elevator and the escalator thing and Whitney, my wife, said, "Don't stop it. You're going to get called out. Someone's going to call you out." And here this little guy next to me in the elevator turns and looks at me and he says, "You're not from Australia." and he said, he sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I was like, oh, hi, mate. Yeah, I'm from Australia. And he's like, where are you from? And I said, the only place I could think of, I was like, Melbourne. And he said, no, you're not. You're a pum.
And so he got it wrong too.
Well, and so he said, well, if you don't know what a pum is, you're not from Australia. And I said, oh, and I had to go back to university and ask a friend of mine. I said, hey, do you know what a pum is? Because she was from Australia, and she correct me if I'm wrong. She said it's what you call people from, is it England that
England, yeah,
like
yeah,
Australian or
Poms,
something?
yeah, the Poms.
Yeah. So I got called out in Paris of all places, and yeah, so it's fun to talk.
In the place you thought you would be really safe with your secret.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean the I guess when you're, I heard, who was it? I actually heard someone recently from the US. I can't remember which actor it was. I was watching something and he had a really good Australian accent, because I think notoriously for actors, for people doing that. Oh, it was Robert Downey Jr. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
he was, and he had this really good Australian accent. It was like spot on. It wasn't any kind of like slightly cartoonish. I mean, version. Yours is a bit like, verging on sort of the cartoonish, which is really funny though. But it's what you would kind of expect,
right,
generally.
Yeah.
But when people don't know, or they haven't had exposure, I guess, to a culture long enough to know what the real,
sure,
yeah, like it's not overstated.
yeah, it's not overstated. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. But it was, it's really funny when actually there was a guy. I always remember this guy. I can't remember the actor's name, but in Lord of the Rings, there's a guy, American actor, who I quite like, and I think he was in like one of the Alien movies too. He was the offsider of Saruman. It's like an American actor,
Yeah.
and I remember him saying in the special features for Lord of the Rings, because he had this really, this very English kind of accent, in Lord of the Rings. And because he's sort of a method actor generally, he kept like in this accent the whole time that he was, doing Lord of the Rings. And no one was really, like the crew and everyone knew that he was an American actor. And then at the end of it, when, it was all over and he broke out of his sort of character and his American accent, and him sort of recounting the story about someone that he knew, I'm sort of quite well going, that is the most terrible American accent I've ever heard in my life. This guy, it was like, I'm American, and give me a break. Just leave it alone. It's bad.
That's fantastic. Well, Saul, I'm going to be emulating. I'm just going to have to listen to this episode and all your episodes enough, and then I'll really learn from a pro.
Yeah, well, maybe don't learn from me, because I've had on occasion, I'm sure I do sound Australian, but I've had on occasion from Australian people going, where are you from? They go, give me a break. Come on. I'm from Brisbane. And they're like, oh, I thought you were like, so you're European or something. No. So you can't account for what people think. Hey, it's funny.
So my people over here won't know any better, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it'll be our secret. That's good. So tell us a bit about Sparrow as well, Sparrow websites.
Yeah, so I launched Sparrow with a friend of mine 4 years ago. We came out of a digital agency where I was the head web designer and he was the CFO. And, that experience was great. I hadn't worked for a kind of a large digital agency up until that point. I was mostly freelance in my work. And so, I got exposed to what does it mean to put a dollar figure on a website that was more than I'll make in 2 years. And, those types of things, where you're working with the person who's like 10 levels down from, the business owner or the college or whatnot. And that can have its benefits and advantages. But as we were there working, I realized, what, as a generalization, agencies tend to chase bigger and bigger whales, or, you know, have bigger and bigger teams. And I just realized through that process, you know what? I like smaller and smaller teams. I like entrepreneurs. I like startups. I like the person with the odds against them. And I also like, you know, trying to find a way to, to bring things to market affordably. And I'm more of a starter person. You know, I like to start things, and agencies are a little bit more built around sustaining and keeping people. So as myself and Adam got to know each other and kind of just share our passions, we both had big families and big hearts, want to give back and help startups. We said, you know what? I don't know if that's going to work in this box. This train is getting a little longer. And we shared with our boss at the time, kind of just, we didn't want him to end up without, you know, two good guys in his team out of the blue. So in that process, we came across there's a scripture in the book of Matthew that says, God provides for the sparrows. You know, don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink. And at the time we had, I had 5 kids and he had 4, and we were thinking of starting from 0. And we came across that verse and we were like, all right, sparrow, let's call it Sparrow. And let's see how we can help startups and entrepreneurs. And that's kind of been our thrust since we started. And actually just a month ago, I was able to become the sole owner, which is a fun next step in the journey and an exciting season ahead. So yeah, it's
awesome.
It's an adventure.
Yeah. So with I actually noticed too, just on just before we talk about some other stuff, I guess too, is that I just noticed when I was looking at your website earlier, and you've got the logo like the SP. Is that some sort of reference to like periodic table?
No, I love it. Yeah. I mean, people either see Scrabble or see
Scrabble. Scrabble
table.
Or periodic table. I kind of thought periodic table first, but then I was trying to reconcile that with Sparrow, which is kind of in its own way good because it just makes you think about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because it's a little bit more of what we bring to the table that's sort of unique is this marriage between creative and strategic. It seems like it tends to be that agencies or marketing firms tend to have a little stronger footing in one or the other. And when we started Sparrow, I was the creative. Adam is strategy nerd. I mean, he's literally traveled the world studying conversion of buttons and colors and fonts for these huge companies prior to it. Just stuff that doesn't interest me, but we realized, hey, if we put strategy and creative together, and that's kind of how we then started looking at the periodic table, and we're saying, hey, they keep the science in it, but let's put an art with it too.
Yeah. There's always kind of something as you know, a designer, because I'm at heart a designer, and I guess in some ways we've got our own probably more slightly different mix to the normal agency. I mean, I don't go around analyzing what other agencies do, but I do kind of know that we've sort of got a pretty even mix of development and design and sort of brand. So we're always kind of, for any website, it's always brand first, really, and then flowing onto design. But I guess the point being then too that when I'm always looking at, say, your logo or something else, when I see something that doesn't say fit in a way that most people would expect, like it's called Sparrow and you might have a sparrow there, you know. Right. You might have a sparrow when you don't have a sparrow. For me, and I'm probably thinking about it differently because of being a designer, but I would imagine other people do too. That's kind of, it is a point of grabbing your attention in a more subtle way, which I kind of like. I really like that when it's called something, but there's something else that doesn't fit, and your brain, it's going, okay, brain, you got to start working this out. What does it mean?
I appreciate that.
And just the process of doing that. I mean, that's just me. Maybe that's like, nobody else does that. I don't know. But but that's just me going, well, what would that mean? That probably means, if it's a bit sciencey, it probably means there's like, along those lines.
It's me trying to make sense of my wasted geological oceanography degree that I spent 4 years in college earning.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then you got all the people like me, like trying to work it out, and there's no meaning at all. There's like absolutely. No meaning, but it doesn't matter because we're just there like, what does it mean? I was looking at a piece of artwork and going, what does it mean? And the artist is like, makes up sort of something that isn't true. And then you're going, wow. And then they just, I don't know what it means either.
In full transparency, it's good you didn't ask me about the 3, because usually people say, that's the question. Honestly, we get a lot. What's the 3 mean in your logo?
Three guys, the 3 of you.
I mean, we answer that sometimes. We tell them 3 steps in our process. We tell them, the 3 audiences you have to consider when you're positioning your brand. I mean,
three. You can apply 3 to anything, basically. So that's a good choice, because 4 would have been awkward, I reckon. That would have been.
Yeah, well, we have these creative little, on our business cards on the back, we have, if it says Justin, it's kind of fun. We took the same Sparrow Element logo, and instead of SP with a 3, it says JU, for Justin. And then in the top, I have a 5, and that was for the amount of kids we had when we launched the business. So my business partner has AD for Adam and 4. And so we have fun little ways we play on it. But
hey, you could do it really cool. I just had an idea, because I was just doing a motion graphic earlier. So my mind is in the frame of reference of like turning stuff into other things. You could turn the 3 around as a couple of little wings, and it could fly away.
There you go.
You go, zip.
There you go. I'll have to take it. We have a little animation on our videos we put out in our trainings. You'll have to tell me what you think of that. But it's, I'll leave it at that. We'll make people go watch it and see what it does.
Yeah, that'll be. Yeah. So, but and so your background, you were saying you're creative. Is it from a graphic design or digital designer, or, much broader than that?
Sadly, probably to the listening ears of your audience, it's a little broader than that. I was never formally really trained in any discipline. You probably don't want me to jump on Illustrator and tell me to do anything special, but I've always had a appreciation for good design and good feel and flow. And, I guess I didn't really know I had an eye for it until I would start, making websites, and some of them for just my personal endeavors or entrepreneurial pursuits. And people would say, "Oh, great. Who designed that?" And I said, "Oh, well, I did." Or I began working for this agency, I guess it'd be 8 years ago. And I was just doing what I normally do, and, listening to people tell their stories and trying to make websites that would both tell their story, but also resonate with their audience that they're trying to attract. That's kind of the hardest, to me, the hardest place to land, authentically. And people just say, "Oh, that looks good." And so, it comes out of more just being drawn and sort of visually, just appreciating that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that I always find interesting, and partially sometimes have to sort of reconcile being a person who, because I'm sort of tend to wear a lot of hats. Like my wife and I originally studied illustration, and so we're sort of, I guess, at our heart, we're sort of artists and illustrators, and would like draw and paint and do like art things. And used to have when we first came out of our studies like years ago, I basically just wanted to be an artist, and I had like an art dealer and like had shows, and I didn't know anything about the new bugger all about like how to live and like feed myself, and then just worked it out. And then years later, then we had this idea with the business, we had sort of graphic design skills and things like that, and then digital skills, but it was like sort of in its own way similar, because I'd really consider most of what I now know wasn't ever taught to me. Like, it wasn't in a course. It was like general things of like, this is how you use Illustrator. But I mean, even that is like, you don't become good at anything unless
Right.
throw yourself in the deep end, and just end up doing it. But the thing I've always found kind of quite interesting is where graphic design meets web design, or I should also say sometimes doesn't meet it, either, because like you've got, and this probably comes more from us working with a lot of designers, and like we might be doing, like have a joint client who's the other designer's doing the branding, and they've got an idea about what they want, like for the website. But I'm sort of saying this too, I guess, because there's always at some point this element of going, that idea is actually really great. That's really great, but it's just not going to work very well in website design. And it is a really different. It's got obviously sort of core design elements, things that universally are good, but then there's just like a bunch of stuff that just doesn't work very well in a website.
I mean, it's a great point. It's a true point. It's not necessarily, I feel like sometimes people hear that as one sort of discipline demeaning or not having room for the other. And it's not that. It's more.
It's easy to position it like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more like kind of time and place and purpose and moment. Because you can have, we work with a lot of, well, first of all, our clients don't always understand that. It makes it hard. Like, can't you make me this custom icon set or this animated thing and make it look and feel like this when you design the site? And just helping them understand sometimes the difference between a web designer and a graphic designer, even maybe a print designer at that. We'll get print materials and say, hey, build my website like this. It should function like this. And helping people understand when they're looking at on a 5-inch, phone screen versus this, it just needs to flow and function different. And you don't quite have the same opportunity as you have when someone's holding something in their hand, or you even have chosen to download a beautiful like graphic lookbook or something that you put a lot of time into. It's just helping people, that time and place kind of
it's design, I guess, like the biggest, it's not really right to say it's a hurdle. I was going to say the biggest hurdle, but it's just about sort of educating people, because we work with a few designers, and some of those people they actually design really nice things, but then it comes to a point where their design meets functionality, and not even that, like it will still look great, but as far as things like flow, like things that aren't considered when you're doing a static design, because you don't have to. You don't have to consider how somebody's going to kind of move through it, a narrative. What are they going to do next? And some of those things are, they're kind of a bit here or there depending on the website, but then in other sites they're really important, or things that you would go, that's really cool, that's excellent, but it's not intuitive. Like it's also meeting people's expectations too. It's good in one sense to push boundaries. But at the same time, I think they're always, for usability and for people, especially like who your audience is, if there is a really specific audience, and there might be, some older people, like if everyone's an older person, and for a fact that all those people are really, they'll be really maybe conservative about it. Like there's not much point in trying to push the boundaries too much, because they won't like it.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, it's just, considering sort of the return. This isn't the thrust of of at least what you said we're going to talk about, but the conversion element is really, I think, deciding what a conversion is on a website for you as the client, or for the client, to us is the kind of, it helps mitigate and steer those conversations. Because if we want to do something really, I don't like it when people call it creatively irrelevant, but something that it's not going to invoke maybe a lead or a next click or whatever, is actually fine if we've decided the conversion that we're measuring is that they spend 30 seconds on that page, as opposed to whether they click and go to the next page, because then they've had time to drink in a little deeper sip of the tea and feel your brand a little more.
Well, it's
so
like,
it's not,
it's like, I really like using this quote, but for the life of me, I still can't remember who actually said it. So there's not much. But I really like this quote though. And it's a quote about like long form content, the idea, like people either spouting out that, things have to be above the fold when they don't really know why they should be above the fold. They should be like above the fold because like everyone used to say that like 20 years ago. Yeah, maybe. Or are they saying it because they genuinely think that there's important content that you should see first above the fold? But if you've got a huge banner and there's no text there, then that's probably not very good. So like having long form content, then you hear those arguments about, oh, we're kind of long form content because people's attention spans are really, really short and they'll get bored, which I always go, I'll just pull out that quote that I don't know the person's name and then say, which is, there's no such thing as a page that's too long. It's a page that's too boring. That
really good.
And I wish I'm going to find that. Actually, it's probably a really easy answer to do that. I should probably just Google it and somebody's name will come up. But I always really like that one because that's like great. our site and like, I guess like a number of sites over the years, some pages can be quite long, and if it's right for the client and it's right for the content, and it can weave you through and educate, or it can tell people about what they need to know. I mean, there's not much point in applying a blanket rule to stuff when you don't understand the reason why you're doing it.
That's well said. That's really well said. Yeah.
And then, I mean, that just comes down from, I guess, a designer's point of view. I just think, well, it doesn't matter what size or things. If it's relevant and it's great and it's engaging, then it's probably doing its job. I mean, there's other aspects to it, about all the different things that you're talking about, conversion and the science of all that is really important. But if you've got a doctor who literally gets no leads and won't ever get any leads from his website because he's booked up for the next 5 years because he's a specialist, what is his website is there to, it's for other reasons. It's about educating existing clients, and it's just to make the brand great and like other things. It's not about conversion. So exactly. You don't have to get into the science of conversion there. You just,
or you just simplify what you measure as the conversion. So
true.
Hey, I was able to keep someone on for a minute. That's a great like they call them like micro conversions, I think, in some nerd speak somewhere, but
micro conversions. Is that like when you look at something and you go, wow, I like that?
You're saying, don't even. Yeah. I feel like if I even drop clues on this, some of these crazy things will get. I was working with someone the other day who was saying, we need to get them to say yes 5 times before they get to the bottom of the page, and I was like, oh my goodness, can we guys? We're not robots here. Like, I'm not gonna anyway.
Well, they might just get jack of that and just leave. I don't want to say yes like 5 times. I'm not here to say yes 5 times. I'm here to look at some pictures and find out some information. Or I just really need to talk to somebody because I hate reading. So I want to find a damn phone number.
Exactly.
And they
That's
just don't want to read. They don't want to read anything.
right.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, too much stuff. Can't find the phone number. I'm out of here.
Yep. Oh, we see it all the time. We watch embarrassingly number of, it's too many hours of screen captures and video captures to you can back that up.
That's the scientists are within you.
Yeah, that's right.
Analyzing data. So what's the so I just got a question. This is sort of a topic that I often I guess talk about with clients when it's in relation to a website, and even if we're not doing branding for somebody, I inevitably I'm always like, I just can't help myself. I'm still thinking you should be doing this, or this would work really well because this has to be consistent. And I always just had this image that I've never been able to get out of my head of like, you're looking of you like hold yourself up, or like you in a mirror, and your website is on the other side of the mirror, and like you and your business and your website is on the other side of the mirror, and if those two things don't like look like each other, or not, like physically, I'm not like your website looks like you, because that'd be stupid, but like to have it so like it's an accurate reflection, like the metaphor being it's like an accurate reflection of how you are like talking to a client, like language and like how you want to be sort of represented. Like, how do you feel that, like how important when you're doing things for clients is like maybe not exactly that idea, but like that idea that things need to be a good reflection of their business?
That's a great question. It's a great point. I think my reaction that I'm usually talking with startups, entrepreneurs, people that are figuring out their brand, sometimes people that have muddled their brand and are trying to untangle the net, is it's a little bit, I feel like that's part of it, I guess, is but to me that's not the only part. And I think that's where sometimes I mean, the joke we kind of talk about is like, when we build a website that's just like the business owner likes and loves and likes to look at, then we get the applause of him and his secretary because they like to look at their website. And
that's right.
It feels like us. But I think what's more important, honestly, just as a reflection of human nature and just good practice, I think, is that your website should also reflect a certain ability to have listened to the person on the other side, because and that may not look like what I look like or talk like or sound like or feel like, but it's rather a result of listening well. And honestly, I do think it's kind of carryover from life. You know, we tend to just try and get our word in and say our bit and kind of go home. We said our bit, but I think we can learn a lot from listening. And again, I think that's where the balance between like hearing what someone who's maybe the brand ambassador or the brand owner or the business owner, how they describe what they do or what they love about what they do, but then actually going out and seeing in the real world how people talk about it, what they love about it. And that allows you, I mean, the best example I could think of is that allows you to be, say, a hole in the wall restaurant that you probably won't show me a beautiful picture of your dining room or the front, street side parking or something that might draw me away, but rather you're going to show me the food, the expression, that like the experience that I'm going to have. And my website can showcase these amazing delicacies, but then you got to weigh that, because then when I show up to find your restaurant for the first time, what am I expecting? And how have you prepared me for the fact that, in your language or in some other way that, you should come in flip-flops and, a t-shirt, because
it's a funny balance, isn't it? Because and I mean, I guess what I was sort of saying too with the reflection is that, I mean, in an ideal landscape that wouldn't be like, how necessarily they think of themselves, because that's not that's you want that balance of people being able to feel trust as like a real person, and you're not
Yeah.
having an amalgamation of like every cultural group and like, old white guy, young,
Yeah.
Chinese girl, Negro
Yeah.
guy, like all in a group, like shaking hands, because everyone knows that's artificial, and that like that of course happens, but they don't all look like models, and they,
Mhm.
it's probably not their business, So, but there's like real mixed with that element of sort of storytelling. Actually, a funny story that I just remember popped into my head. It was about, it wasn't our client, but we were a friend, was a photographer who was doing some photography work for our local council, for the coast, and there was a campaign that's here for the coastline, and he was doing a whole lot of drone footage of the coastline, and there's never been done before in this sort of way. The reality is it's incredibly beautiful, but nobody in the area thinks of it like they would think of other areas in Queensland, like the Daintree or like the Great
Right.
Barrier Reef, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing and gorgeous. They don't really think of this area like that, but the reality
Wow.
is it is. And I
Wow.
remember him telling me that he took these photos of like our actual coastline. It wasn't like on the Great Barrier Reef, and he just said it was here. It was here,
Right.
and
Right.
he took these photos with this drone, and they were like, "Oh wow, that is like gorgeous." And the response from a number of people at the council meeting who were looking at the work, because he did some videography too, was, "Oh, we don't want people to think like it looks like too good, or like
Oh my.
it looks like that's not how we want to be represented." And he was like, "But that's our coastline.
Hmm.
That is our coastline. It is
Yeah.
amazing, and it is." And like, isn't the point of it that we're showcasing? It would be different if he went and photoshopped a few dolphins in and like a couple of
Sure.
whales, and went, um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
like artificially added things in, but he didn't. And I thought
well,
that's a great case
that's a
in point for what you're talking about.
yeah. No, that's great, because with a website, I mean, you can. That's the beautiful thing, is like you can go so much deeper and draw people so much more into your story, the experience, the why you do what you do, what you love about it. Like, you don't just have to sell the next pizza. You can draw them into the story and the love and the affection, or you don't have to just book the next job. You can tell them about like what this means to your family, and like you could just tell so much richer story, and really enable people to see something they wouldn't see at a glance. The town we're in, you asked it prior to our recording. You said, where's Columbia? And uh, I mean, I told you where Lancaster County was because people usually
Yeah.
know Amish country or something. But case in point is Columbia is the joke is it's the armpit of Lancaster County, and it's this river town that was really significant in the years of like the emancipation years and slave trade, and Al Capone bootlegging whiskey out to the canals right out of this town.
It's got
And
a real history.
oh, it's rich and it's deep, and we shot these. It's funny you mentioned drone. We shot these like drone and like portraiture video kind of things of architecture, and put this out on it. There's actually a video on YouTube. I think it's called Columbia, This Is Home. And people were saying, wait, where is this? Like, this is your town. Like,
Yeah.
this is the place you live. So yeah, video, web, it kind of all of those emotive things, like graphics, like literal photographs, or,
I guess it's a lesson then, though, too. Like there's a lesson in that about, that's obviously making people themselves then aware, maybe, unless they completely ignore the fact that they didn't realize their place was incredible, or they just go, I didn't, like, I obviously haven't been paying attention,
yeah,
or you do, which is, I mean, that's easy to do. Like people just get caught up and they live somewhere, and you don't often take notice of like all the really cool little things. And like we just live on the water here. Like I'm literally like I'm sort of a street away from the water,
Okay.
and I think ourselves like very fortunate. Like it's a beautiful area. It's still really accessible, but we've got the water. We could just go in and sort of see that. And
Yep.
I think it's when you pay, it's sort of that level of focus that people have, which then I suppose too, if you're talking about design and you're going like good design, and then especially in a website where it's a different animal to a static design where you can be pushed and pulled and like from here and moving down, and the screen size changes, then you can move it on mobile, and there's all these things you have to consider.
Yeah.
But then like you can twist things, twist in brackets, not negatively, it sort of twist things in sort of such a way to weave the story in a way like to suit the brand, so that it like, even if it feels so different, it's still the same. I mean, it's about, there's always a level in like all design and art of people being somehow manipulated by like their own ideas too,
Sure.
of them
Yeah.
going, or their preconceptions. It's like you would expect, you expect to go to, I don't know, like a burger place's website, and it be like a bit sort of brighter and like pictures of food and like people eating, and it's a bit more, but then if you've got a different brand and it's like gourmet burgers and they've got a different sort of sensibility, it might be a bit quieter, and you want to use like fonts in a certain way, but it all still is always playing on existing established kind of rules that people kind of maybe don't know they even know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that means that like the slim fonts equals style, or yeah, and it does. I mean, like there's not all, slim fonts, but certainly some, like you look at them and then certain colors, if you like,
Sure.
just black and white. That's why you see in fashion all the time, it's always often black and white in like a lot of high-end fashion stuff. And then it's just come to mean that, like it means like high-end fashion when you use like really cool like serif fonts. It's just, and so people know that they don't have to like go to design school to know that. They just know it because they're exposed to it so often. So you just like take those rules and use them in a way that suits your brand, and then it makes sense. Because then if you just ignore those established rules that people don't realize they know, that then it's kind of it can be harmful to like your mission, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think so to take the small business owner that might not realize they know or notice or have even clothed themselves with those rules they didn't even know they were making, or I think it's helpful just to bring them to say, to state those, to show them like,
totally. Because when you bring them up, like people get it, like, because people, I mean, I don't, I'm not a fan at all of the assumption of that, there's that, I guess, a marketing sort of approach that has been around forever, of more these days of people are really, essentially kind of implying people are kind of stupid, and that you and they've got short attention spans. And I mean, those things are relevant. They aren't not don't have an element of truth, but I think people like give people other things, and people do enjoy them, and people do appreciate them. It's not that there's one way that people can be fed information. There's people that are very, very smart generally, I think.
Yeah, I think it comes, I mean, I didn't go to school for big marketing, like my business partner. He was all digital marketing, so he talks about the funnel. And I actually listened to some great podcasts you had on talking about some of those funnels. Like for me, I understand a more layman sort of practical understanding to it of like some of those at some point, if someone's first exposure to your website or something is they're maybe not even sure if they want to be committed to the conversation, or committed to the we have to like get them in their lane, so to speak, of trying to understand, hey, you came looking for this, or you wondered if we do that. Like, yeah, we do that thing. But as soon as you kind of understand who you're talking to, as soon as you get to that, hey, my name's Saul, this is what I do. Then once you get into that part of your website where it's kind of the next commitment level, I feel like, yeah, we're sort of doing a disservice to people if we assume that they're just waiting for 2 more clicks to be out or get a quote.
Yeah, well, people don't follow all the rules that people make up. They just don't. Like everyone's, yeah. I mean, there's certainly truth in why those things came about in the first place, but people like you. It's a trust building exercise, right? Like it's like me. It's like you walk into a group of people, and I mean, I'm no great analyzer of like human nature or anything like that. I mean, far from it. But like, if you're walking in a group of people and like at a party and you don't know anyone, there's generally, I reckon, like you tend to gravitate then towards like you just generally, and you're not analyzing, you just like, you see how someone's talking, or you see like a group of people that are obviously just want to talk on their own, you don't go over to them. Otherwise, they'll just like ignore you. And then, but there's other people then who, look at you. So well, there's signals, and then there's the initial trust. And I mean, it's not that different to then you experience when you're coming across a website, because what you're kind of really doing is because you're wanting to get in contact with someone to do something for you, generally, like a service or to buy something. And there's preconceived things that you already like, and if it ticks those boxes, you go, yep, awesome, that feels like sporty or the right, like I like Nike, I like all the way they do stuff. If that's like a thing you're really into, then that's probably going to inform your decisions about other sporting places you go to. Trust. And then you go, oh, I feel, and once again, you're not like analyzing it scientifically. You're just going, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And that feels like this. Like with a group of people, then you feel, I'll go to that person, and then they give you a friendly look, and then you go, oh, hello, hello, Justin, and then you have a chat, strike up a conversation, you start to just build trust, and so on.
Yeah, no, that's even a good analogy. You could probably squeeze out a lot of that in terms of how you engage a group of unknown strangers. And
yeah, I mean, most people,
but it's a good, to me it's good because it depends again what you want out of the engagement. Like do you just want people to know you're there, or do you want to know why people are there? Like, are you here to just take, or are you here to like give and listen, and again walk away smarter, or walk away with like a next lead, walk away sharing more of, hey, we do things different, or just trying to kind of get the next sale. And I mean, as a small business owner, I'm familiar with the tension and the temptation, but
yeah, same. I mean, like that's the thing too, is that ultimately, like we're no different to other small business owners. That's actually the one thing that I've always found a lot of kind of comfort when I go to things like BNI, is that you like, despite completely different industries, completely different things that you do, have so much, and like completely different sorts of people, but there's like so much commonality there, like more than most are, like even a lot of people say in like our industry too, just because like you are there for a common purpose, and you're all generally going through this like very similar struggles in small business. So like people just want to people just want to connect with other people basically when they want something done. Like they obviously want a particular thing, but then when you go to a website, if you can like use that as like the first bridge, like over to, then the next step. Well, or these days, the meeting somebody first, then after the fact, people going, yeah, they're pretty cool, but I'm going to check them out, check out what their website, check out their LinkedIn profile, check out their Facebook thing, like, hunt them down everywhere online I could find. If you're really zany. And then, if all that matches up, I mean, that's one of the good and sort of maybe the bad things about the internet is that you can do all that. You can, whether the results you find out are what you're looking for, like another thing.
No, that is such a good point because, and honestly, that's why we tell a lot of, so sometimes there's a school of thought for entrepreneurs, startups, that, the website isn't necessary yet, get your feet under you, survive the first 3 years. But it just doesn't work that way anymore. I mean, they might hear your word of mouth, but again, the research would say the next step they do is jump on a search engine and try and validate what they saw. So for us, even at Sparrow, I mean, one of our favorite stories, just learning experiences, was we got our first, maybe 3 years ago. We were, 6 months or so into our journey, and we had a huge local opportunity. So it kind of fit our boxes of like, hey, we don't want to fall for chasing whales. We just want to go after fish, and eventually fish might lead to a whale now and then. And it seemed to be the flow. And we were given an opportunity to be one of these 4 companies that pitched to a pretty big local client, but they still met our sort of boxes of like, hey, we can work directly with the owners. It will be a face-to-face kind of process. And it's just some things that we're pretty, careful about. Yeah. One big thing is when we got the emails from the secretary setting up this big pitch and meeting, and, we lead with a lot of data and research to inform our kind of creative hunches or sort of proposed, approaches. And people seem to like that. But the lady kept saying, remember, these are, it was an agency. It was a real estate agency with like 60 agents that were going to be at the meeting collectively
60,
deciding.
wow.
60. Yeah.
That's a big meeting.
And they were like, that was it. Like we were back to back 4 half-hour slots. And she said, hey, the real estate agents, keep in mind, they dress, business casual or business professional. So, keep that in mind. I think we got like 3 emails with that. And we pulled up outside. I mean, I can't show you the other side of my computer, but I'm one of those guys that has all these logos on my laptop, and I wear jeans and a t-shirt, and that's just how I roll. I mean, literally, that's how I roll. And my business partner, he's in a flannel every day of his life with jeans, and he's always got a knife on him. I mean, he's a he's a hoot. He's a good old backwoods camping. He's ready to go camping anytime. So
yeah.
So we like pull up, and I was nervous because I saw the people come out, and they were all as they were. And my point, I guess, in my story is we went in, we gave the pitch. We hadn't even got home, and we got a call from the secretary that we got the job, and they said, "We loved your research, and we loved that you were just down to earth." And so, like, when you go to our website, I'm sure we've lost jobs because we're not, button tie, but to me, you got to be authentically you. And
so true. Yeah, it's real true. I mean, like I had that sort of discussion my wife and I have had numerous times over the years of being, it's like leaving, and we went to the Queensland College of Art and we studied illustration, and we just bumming around for a number of years, not really knowing what we were going to do, and always had this idea about having this sort of agency that would be really cool, and we'd have all these great jobs and be able to employ people, and then like years later that happened, and really all those things came true. But the thing that we had kind of always discussed was about, we used to call ourselves, it used to be this ongoing joke. We don't really call ourselves this anymore because it doesn't seem as relevant because I don't know, we've moved past it. We used to call ourselves the little pretenders, that we used to always feel that we were, sort of pretenders or like imposters. And when we'd have success and things like that, we'd be like, oh yeah, but we're just us. And yeah, and we always like have been still us, but then coming to a point where you can actually have these other great things happen and like, have different levels of success and like in many instances way more than we could ever have imagined.
Yeah.
But still then going, oh, but like probably like part of that maybe instead of analyzing is that we have still like, it is really important just to be you because people know that, like they know if you're being you or not. People don't have to be like an amazing, really sensitive to, to how people are to know. People know if you're you. They know if you're putting stuff on, unless you're like the most skilled like con artist in the world. Maybe you can pull it over someone's eyes, but generally people know, and that's really important, especially then in small business. I mean, like we're talking about, because people like really want, I mean, everyone does. Everyone wants to like deal with, decision makers and, people, and partially to make your life easier, and partially because it's, you want to feel like you're going to do a good job. And sometimes because people have been burnt before. I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems to be like in generally the web industry, probably because there's so many people that do it. And it's really, my reasoning is that, for what I'm going to say is that I think because there's so many people that do it, and the likelihood of things going wrong for people, sometimes multiple times, is probably higher than like I would certainly like. So it's then sometimes quite refreshing when people do end up coming across someone who's just like, yeah, sure, can help out, and they're just going to do a good job for you, and there's no like silly business about it, and they're like, oh, it's the first time it's ever happened to me. They're like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, but I think it's just because there's so many people that do it, basically, that the odds are that there's going to be this amount of that and this amount of this.
Yeah, everyone's got a cousin's friend's brother who's got a
it's an ongoing joke, isn't it? Yeah. It's like the kid next door. Actually, the joke about like the kid next door, which sounds like it would always be made up, is that actually just happened recently to me. Some person was like, I said, who, because we were trying to track down who hosted their site, which is always one of those problems too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like who hosted your site? And like, I don't know. And then we finally worked out that it was like, literally it was like the kid next door. And like, how did they, yeah, obviously just like signed up for an account somewhere because they asked, and then did it for them. And it was like the kid next door. He just did it. But then he's gone, like he's off to university or something. And, he doesn't care about that anymore.
Yeah. How do you feel like you balance that when people, at least in the States and working with entrepreneurs, when it comes to that expectation of even like service, how have you guys just even been able to help educate or respond to people kind of setting expectations when it comes to those like design services? Because it seems that everyone has a different.
Oh yeah. It is. I think we're better at it. My general preference is always, because I know like friends that we have too, like from, say, if you're talking about when people go, do you strictly charge on hourly rate and then you bill like for exactly every single thing you do and all that sort of stuff? We don't. I've sort of never done that. I thought about it initially many, many years ago. I thought, that sounds, if someone was doing that with me, I would be really annoyed. So I don't want to
It's
do
a
that.
headache. Yeah.
Because, and it's also fraught with a lot of problems, because I'll generally, unless there's a specific reason, like I know somebody really well, we've got an established relationship, that we'll just do stuff on a hourly rate and just bill you for that, which we do with some people. But that's only because like that's the way they specifically want to do it. And we established it was cool. We've done it, but most of the time, I'll, without exception, make sure that everyone's 100% across what's going to cost, what's involved. Are you okay with that? And if not, that's like, sort of open to talking about it within reason, and, trying to just be open and like simple and straightforward about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I generally can't help but put myself in the shoes of, if someone was doing that to me, I'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna hang around for that. That's just too annoying.
Yeah, and on it, and I ask because that's usually the number one thing that comes up when people come to us and have been burnt before by the cousin's friend, brother, or the big agency where they're expecting to spend something and crazy just to update something that I can do in 5 minutes. And
they get the bill.
Yeah, and so we, like all of our stuff, it probably will prevent us from scaling and being a household name because of our bleeding hearts for entrepreneurs. And we can just do that. Yep, we can do that. But I think like you said, it's how you'd want to be treated.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that I mean this even just happened recently too, and I'm where we did, it was, one part was just a brochure. It was a good job. Like there was a whole range of different things. There was branding and website and a whole lot of print design and other things. And one part of the job, which was just a tiny part, just took 5 or 6 times as long. And then I didn't charge any extra because I was like, well, I could, but I think that the result will be, there would be, right or wrong, whoever's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter, because even if I'm justified in doing that, I'm pretty sure the end result will be there'll be a bit of bad blood. Mm-hmm. And is that worth me doing that?
Right.
Like, well, yeah, is it my right to do that? Like, who really cares about rights? It's not like my right to do it. It's like whether I think it's justified. Like I'm not going to have I've never really had like a blanket rule. I'll just usually work it out on how I feel about the situation. And once again, like I'm the same. Like it might mean that, things that shouldn't happen, but I'm okay with that. Like I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. I'm just gonna, main thing is that people are happy within reason. Like I'm not gonna, if it really deserves this, has to be billed extra. Yeah. But I'm not going to do that just as my rule.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think it circles back to, if we, walk in that room, or the expectation is to serve others and to kind of give, and not just always get a return for something we invest. And it's just how we measure even our when we go to bed at night, just knowing that we've done good work and served people well. It's not always that we got billed for every moment that we put in. So that's
the reward, isn't it? Yeah, is actually seeing somebody be happy with what you've done, and that it can actually have a really good result ultimately for their business. Which Justin, may be a good segue to move towards wrapping up the podcast, because that sounds like a really nice, happy way to end. I think it's like a really happy way. And at which point, I'm actually going to ask you now for a really great quote that you'd like to share with everyone, that you said that you might just do like in the middle of the podcast, but you got it.
Well, you queued it up. It's going to feel like we staged this whole thing, Saul, and now we're going to be called out. But honestly, my quote I had from the beginning to share was from a pretty famous Jewish carpenter man that's a friend of mine. He said to treat others or do unto others as you'd have them do to you, or simplified, to treat others as you'd like to be treated. So to me, that quote, if I wake up every day and go to sleep evaluating my day, whether I'm, dealing with kids as a father, whether I'm dealing with neighbors who may or may not be feeling nice today, or whether I'm serving clients, it's really that, do I treat others the way I'd like to be treated? And
I think that's a good one. Yeah, no. Yeah. I think I know that guy. I think I know who that is.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, no, but true. That's a real one. It's an oldie but a real goodie. So that is, and before we wrap up, can you just let everyone know, listening, best way for people to get to learn more about you and Sparrow and how they can get in contact?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if we've done our job, they should be able to just Google Sparrow websites.
Yeah.
But if you have to type it in, it's sparrowwebsites.com. But you can just see what we're up to and follow along. And hey, hopefully be helped in the things you're called to do and pursuing, whoever you may be or wherever you may be. So
you got some pretty good content on there too. And once again, thanks so much, for taking the time for reaching out too. It's been a great chat. And so with that in mind, that's actually it for today, guys. Thanks so much for listening into our podcast. Before we go, please leave your feedback as well as any suggestions for topics you would like us to discuss in any future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Grow Business Podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Grow